I'm sure most of you have seen Triangle, the mind-bending time loop movie. But a zombie version? Probably not. Today, we're diving into a special kind of zombie film. The movie opens with a man waking up inside a helicopter. Feeling the urge to pee, he steps outside to relieve himself. As he's doing his business, a strange figure silently walks past him from the side. The man notices that the figure's face is covered in blood. Before he can react, the person collapses right in front of him. Panicked, the man rushes back to the helicopter and grabs a handgun. He scans his surroundings cautiously, only to spot another gun on the ground. It looks exactly like his own. Confused, he hesitates. Then, a single drop of liquid falls onto his ear from above. His face tenses as realization dawns. Slowly, he turns around, only to see a zombie staring him down with a murderous glare. Without warning, the zombie raises its hand and slaps the man across the face before ruthlessly snapping his neck. With its target eliminated, the zombie then climbs into the helicopter. Just as it prepares to take off, something invisible in the sky suddenly stops the aircraft in its tracks. In the next instant, the helicopter explodes into a massive fireball, scattering debris everywhere. A few days later, a squad of mercenaries was flying a helicopter toward a remote island. This island belonged to a private company called TSL Pharmaceuticals. TSL had been dedicated to researching ways to enhance the human immune system and had even developed genetic enhancement procedures for soldiers. 2 days ago, an accident occurred at TSL's research facility on the island. Coincidentally, the company president's daughter, Stacy, was also there at the time. With all communication systems on the island completely down, the president assembled a 6-man team to go in and find her. The helicopter quickly arrived at the island. While the pilot remained behind to secure the aircraft, the rest of the squad split into 2 teams to begin their search. Addison's team hadn't gone far when they stumbled upon something alarming. A gruesome corpse lying in the tall grass. Judging by the ID badge, they realized it was one of the island's staff members. Sensing something was wrong, Addison immediately attempted to contact the other team for an update. However, the radio only responded with static. Meanwhile, Dex was busy jotting down notes, while another team member, Colt, couldn't shake off his unease. Something about the corpse seemed off, so he turned to Addison for answers. But Addison simply shook his head. He was just as clueless as Colt. With no choice but to keep moving, the 3 of them pressed forward. The other team had been walking along the riverbank when their leader, Russ, spotted a rope tied near the water. He stared at the calm surface of the river, lost in thought. For some reason, he felt like he had been here before. Meanwhile, as Addison's team ventured deeper into the island, they began to encounter more and more bodies. Eventually, they arrived at an abandoned tent. Inside, there was nothing but another corpse. Addison quickly checked the tent's communication equipment, hoping to establish contact with Russ's team. But once again, there was only silence on the other end. At the same time, Dex had just picked up a wristwatch from one of the corpses. He compared it to the one he was wearing, only to realize they were identical. Colt, noticing Dex's unease, tried to reassure him. "It's just a coincidence," he said. "Don't overthink it." Meanwhile, back at the helicopter, the pilot was starting to feel the urge to relieve himself. Unable to reach either team on the radio, he decided to step out for a quick break. And just like that, the chilling scene from the beginning of the film unfolded. Outside the tent, Colt and Dex remained on high alert. Suddenly, they heard rustling noises coming from the dense forest ahead. Gripping their weapons tightly, they moved cautiously toward the source of the sound. That's when Dr. Young appeared. He introduced himself as a scientist working for TSL Pharmaceuticals. According to him, he had arrived on the island before them, only to find the massacre had already taken place. Dr. Young told the team that he knew where Stacy was. But when they finally saw her, they were completely stunned. Half of Stacy's face was mangled and covered in blood. She lay lifeless on the ground. She had been dead for some time. After all the effort they had put into this mission, their target was already gone. With nightfall approaching, Addison decided they should set up camp and wait until morning before heading to the rendezvous point. That night, while chatting with Dr. Young, Dex casually mentioned his name. The moment Dr. Young heard it, he suddenly became agitated. He rushed back to his tent and retrieved a notebook. Curious, Dex took out his own notebook as well. When they compared the two, they were shocked to find that they were identical. Same handwriting, same signature, everything. The only difference was that Dr. Young's notebook contained more entries. Dex had no idea how his notebook had seemingly duplicated itself. As they were still trying to make sense of it, something terrifying happened to the other team. Russ and his teammates had been sitting around a fire, trying to keep warm, when they suddenly heard heavy breathing nearby, like that of a wild animal. The 3 of them immediately grabbed their weapons and stood on high alert. But before they could react, Tag was suddenly yanked into the darkness by something unseen. Russ quickly pursued, just in time, managed to shoot and save Tag. But on the other side of the camp, Chase wasn't so lucky. He was brutally killed by a monstrous creature. But what was truly horrifying, it looked exactly like Chase. Meanwhile, through their discussion, the team realized that the notebook might be the key to understanding what was happening. The additional entries in Dr. Young's notebook contained something shocking. It stated that Stacy, the company president's daughter, would come back to life the next day. Skeptical but desperate for answers, they decided to check for themselves. And to their utter disbelief, Stacy was indeed alive the next morning. On the other side of the island, Russ and Tag finally arrived at the southern camp. As they entered, they found the place completely deserted. Russ picked up a radio from the table and tried contacting the others. This time, to his surprise, he got a response. Addison informed them that they had found Stacy. Russ and Tag let out a sigh of relief. At least their teammates' sacrifices weren't in vain. The mission was technically a success. Later, after some comforting from Dex, Stacy finally opened up about what had happened. She revealed that the research team had arrived on the island 3 days ago. That was when they discovered something terrifying. The island was surrounded by an invisible barrier. Once someone entered, they couldn't leave. But that wasn't even the worst part. A deadly virus had broken out among them. The infected lost all reason, hunting down anyone who hadn't mutated yet. Stacy and her colleagues were slaughtered one by one. As for how she had come back to life, she had no idea. Fortunately, Dr. Young was able to provide an explanation. He found several of Dex's notebooks, but these contained entries describing events that hadn't happened yet. According to the notes, the island appeared to be trapped inside a wormhole. Time and events on the island reset every 3 days, repeating in an endless loop. In other words, every 3 days, a new version of themselves would arrive on the island, repeating the same mission to rescue Stacy. Colt, still confused, asked why they hadn't run into their past selves. Dr. Young explained the grim reality. 3 days ago, their previous versions had likely died. No one ever survived past the 3rd day. The island was completely overrun by the virus. Before they could process this horrifying truth, Stacy and Dex suddenly heard a guttural snarl nearby. Dex immediately raised his gun and moved cautiously toward the sound. But just as he was closing in, an eerie figure silently appeared right behind him. The guttural growls of the infected echoed through the tent. The others quickly grabbed their weapons, their nerves on edge. Dr. Young's theory was now playing out in real time. This cycle slaughter had begun. And sure enough, Russ and Tag were ambushed at the same moment. But the true horror was finally revealed. The creatures attacking them were identical copies of themselves. Russ reacted instantly, firing his gun without hesitation. But the zombies didn't even flinch. Tag's ammo ran out fast, and as another zombie lunged at him, he had no choice but to draw his knife and engage in brutal close combat. Meanwhile, Russ seized the opportunity to grab a pistol from the ground and landed a perfect headshot, putting the creature down for good. At the same time, Addison and Colt also encountered their undead doppelgangers. The sight of their own faces staring back at them left them frozen in shock. Colt hesitated for just a second too long. His zombie self tackled him to the ground. But Addison didn't waste time. Without a moment's doubt, he fired a bullet straight into his undead twin's skull. Then, he and Colt teamed up to take down the second attacker. The mercenary team barely survived the first wave of zombies. Just as they caught their breath, another disaster struck. Dex had just returned to Stacy's side, only to see her body start twisting and contorting in an unnatural way. Before he could react, zombie Stacy latched onto him, clawing at his face, fingers digging deep into his eye sockets. A gunshot rang out. Stacy collapsed. Colt had arrived just in time, but it was too late. Dex was already dead. As the sun dipped closer to the horizon, Russ made another attempt to contact headquarters. This time, he finally got a response. Wasting no time, he urgently reported that they had found Stacy and requested immediate extraction. But the voice on the other end was cold and emotionless. Stacy is already dead. The rescue window is closed. And just like that, the line went dead. Headquarters had abandoned them, leaving them to fend for themselves. Tag quickly relayed the devastating news to Addison and the others. At that moment, everything became painfully clear. From the very moment they set foot on this island, they had been nothing more than lab rats, part of an experiment they never agreed to. Now, survival was up to them. And that's when something clicked in Russ's mind. His memories began piecing themselves back together. He had been here before. Years ago, he had taken part in an identical mission, and somehow, he had managed to escape. He remembered finding a boat and making it off the island. But after that, all of his memories had vanished. There was one thing, however, that he was absolutely certain of. When he first entered the island, the date was September 26, 2023. But when he escaped, time had inexplicably rewound back to 2021. And now, on September 26, 2023, he was back here once again, reliving the exact same nightmare. At this point, Dr. Young spoke up, suggesting that the time distortions were most likely caused by a wormhole. He recalled once seeing a classified company document detailing research on wormholes and time manipulation. But none of that mattered right now. If they wanted to escape, they had only one option: find the same boat Russ had used years ago. The next morning, the two teams split up to search. Following Russ's hazy memories, Addison's group successfully reached the boat's location. Miraculously, there was just enough fuel to make it to the coastline. But things didn't go so smoothly for Russ and Tag. On their way to the rendezvous point, they were ambushed by a horde of zombies. Back to back, the two fired every last bullet in their magazines. With no other choice, they resorted to close combat. The problem was, these creatures were far stronger than any human. Russ was slammed to the ground. Tag rushed over to help, only to be tackled by his mutated doppelganger. Pinned beneath his own monstrous reflection, Tag struggled desperately, until the creature sank its teeth deep into his neck. By the time Russ managed to put down the last zombie and reached his friend, Tag was already gone. But there was no time to grieve. A low growl echoed behind him. Russ spun around, only to see a mutated version of himself slowly raising a gun. Just as the zombie was about to fire, Colt arrived just in time. They were about to regroup with the others when another zombie suddenly lunged at Russ, knocking him aside. After Colt killed the zombie, he realized that Russ had been impaled by a sharp wooden spike from a tree. The explosion that would obliterate the island was already in motion, and Russ knew there was no way out for him. He urged Colt to leave immediately, not to waste any more time on him. Seeing the determination in Russ's eyes, Colt reluctantly handed over the gun lying on the ground and turned to leave. Meanwhile, Dr. Young watched as the explosion was rapidly approaching their location. Addison, however, still insisted on waiting for the others to return before leaving. In that moment, Dr. Young grabbed a nearby pipe wrench. As Dr. Young was about to leave on the boat, Colt arrived at the last second and grabbed the rope attached to the vessel. Addison, who had been unconscious, finally regained consciousness just in time. As the boat neared the wormhole, Dr. Young began to mutate. Having arrived a day earlier than the others, he started the mutation process ahead of them. When mutated Dr. Young attacked Addison, a bullet suddenly pierced his skull. It was Russ, who, in his final moments, had come through to help them escape. The two on the boat didn't have time to celebrate, as they were getting closer and closer to the wormhole. With a flash of light, the boat and everyone on it vanished. When Colt was pulled ashore, he had lost all of his memories. Addison, however, found himself back on the island once again, this time in the version of the island before it was destroyed. Upon returning to San Francisco, another Addison found Colt and asked him to join him on a mission to a small island to rescue the wealthy businessman's daughter, Stacy.